take your seats. We're ready to begin. We're going to start with Elder Bob Baxter.
Amigos, good afternoon. I just want to say that it was quite a trip getting here today. We flew around Toronto for about 4 times, circling around. But we couldn't land, so we ended up in Kingston. We had to Uber it over here. And here we are. I'm going to say the opening prayer. And it's to give thanks to the Creator for all the things that we're given as we journey with our lives on this earth, the things that we take for granted. The earth and what's in it and everything in it that He gave us. All the knowledge and the medicines that are out there for us to explore and learn. I'm very honored to have been asked to come here to say the opening prayer. I've been an officer for 34 years with First Nations policing, and I'm glad that I'm here. I'm honored to be here to see this joyous occasion for our police service and for our people of man. I'm going to say the prayer in my language. They say that when you speak in your own language, that prayer is very powerful when said in one's language. Amigos. Agjaman ito. Kinana kumigo gagi jigak minoa. Wega mamuga puyan. Wega gewa bandamang minoa. Wega Nishnawbe Kamina ganuch kenun jimen sewa chuma gaya king. Wega jima gan shiwi ano kiwin. Tukuniwen ano kiwin. Chenun jima meno seg. Magiun jima chamaga. Shoin mishnam. Janana ga chi ishnam. Aniwa bante ishnam ge geni ji ituang we ni mikanana. So ni mek kenoma ga ya watch ani bo watch man ke nen yok ko we ge ino ga you have them watch we ka we chigani ngo man ke. Kinenis kemashkoen dagas kishamanito. Chunche ken damangan koyak chitot damang koyak che iket doang koyak chinon damang koyak iket nanyang kishikaganos nanyang. Mi amigos iket kishamanito. Miigwech and mishnamagagishak. Miigwech.
Minister, please come for your remarks.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. With the esteemed Chief, I'd like to also acknowledge Chief Kailu, Chief Armstrong, the Grand Chiefs, the Deputy Grand Chiefs, my colleague from the legislature, and very distinguished guests, and also the Deputy Solicitor General, Mario Di Tommaso. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Elder Baxter, for your prayer and for reminding us that the road that we travel together can only be done when we're doing so with an open heart and a willingness to listen and to learn. Thank you. It's an honor to be here with Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler, Deputy Chief Annabette, former Grand Chief Bentley, Deputy Grand Chief Mike, and the distinguished guests who are here today. First Nations police services like Nishnawbe Aski Police Service keep communities safe across the province, particularly in Northern Ontario. Brave men and women choose service over self and answer the call when people need help. It's law enforcement that protects our inherent right to live our lives safely, to go to work, to see our kids off to school, to shop, to pray, and to return home to our homes at the end of the day. All of this is made possible when we do it safely by the courage and hard work of police officers who work in the night and day through blizzards and natural disasters, who always go above and beyond. We owe so much to our police services, and they will always have the support of our government under the leadership of Premier Ford. That's why we brought the Community Safety and Policing Act and many of its regulations into force earlier this year and established a modern and robust framework for policing. The CSPA responds to long-standing calls to advance policing that is fair and equitable and safe and transparent, and most of all, effective. My ministry has worked closely with policing, justice, community, and municipal partners, and First Nations. The partnerships formed through these engagements, including those with First Nations leadership and First Nations policing leaders, help to inform a legislative framework that reflects the unique community needs across this province. It brings enhanced and modernized training requirements for policing in Ontario, as well as clear roles and requirements of police service boards. We've also developed and rolled out a new training curriculum on the roles of a police service board and the responsibilities of its members, ensuring that content is specific to the needs of local police service boards. And this includes, for the first time, providing First Nations police services in Ontario with the opportunity to opt in to the provincial policing legislative framework. In 2023, I traveled to Thunder Bay to attend my first NAN Chiefs meeting. I promised then that our government would meet a very ambitious timeline on the Community Safety and Policing Act. The result of this conversation makes me so proud to be here today, because we have done just that. Today is nothing short of historic for First Nations policing in Ontario. Today, once we sign the regulation, the Nishnawbe Aski Police Service, governed by the Nishnawbe Aski Police Service Board, will be officially opted into the Community Safety and Policing Act. This is the first time ever that a First Nations police service has opted into provincial policing legislation. This means that the 34 First Nations communities that are served and protected every day by NAPS, including the 25 remote and northern First Nations, from the Manitoba border up to the James Bay coast, over to the Quebec border, have opted in to the provincial policing legislative framework. And that the Nishnawbe Aski Police Service Board will continue to provide culturally appropriate policing services tailored to the needs of these residents. And we will continue to support them through the provincial funding and legislation that will ensure policing oversight and effective policing service standards for remote and northern communities. This includes our government's commitment of up to $514.3 million over 3 years to support this transition. As part of this agreement, NAPS and its board will work towards significantly increasing its officer complement and meeting the legislative requirements of the CSPA, with plans to increase the total service size to over 500 frontline officers and over 170 civilian staff. And Chief Armstrong, I couldn't be more proud to be with you every step of the way on your journey. That means more boots on the ground and more support for our largest First Nations police service in the province. It means improved service for remote and northern communities in our province. It means if you call for help, there will be someone to answer your call. To support that expansion and needs across the province, we've ramped up recruitment and training. Our government continues to tackle the recruitment challenge head on by covering 100% of the tuition for basic constable training. We're getting more boots on the ground by increasing the number of recruits that can attend the basic constable training program at the Ontario Police College. Starting in 2025, the basic constable training program will accommodate an additional 80 recruits per year, with priority given to First Nations police services and other small and medium-sized police services across our province. The expanded enrollment will bring the total number of officers trained per year up to 2,080. And by expanding this training program, we're continuing to support police services, including Indigenous police services, with their recruitment efforts. Public safety is a cornerstone of our communities, and the dedication of police ensures that the people of Ontario can live, work, and raise their families safely. As Solicitor General for Ontario, I recognize the unique challenges police services and their boards face, and public safety will always remain our government's top priority. First Nations police services are funded under the federal government's First Nations and Inuit Police Program. That federal program has its shortfalls, which is why Ontario took the significant step on its own to ensure our First Nations policing partners have the ability to opt in to the legislation. We are continuing to work with police services across the province, including First Nations police services, to ensure they have the tools, the training, and the resources they need to keep people safe. Ontario is safer and stronger when we work together. And our government, led by Premier Ford, recognizes the importance of the work that you do. We will always have your backs. It is a privilege and an honor of a lifetime to be here today. Thank you. Merci beaucoup, miigwech. This time, I'd like to turn it over to Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler.
Miigwech, Minister. Good afternoon, everybody. Miigwech, Bob, Kagi, MCA. It's good to have you here. I know it was a bit of an adventure getting here, but thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I also just want to acknowledge everyone that's in this room, all the guests sitting up here, and all the board members and all the staff that are here with us this afternoon. Sitting next to me is Bentley Cheechoo. Bentley was the Grand Chief of the Nishnawbe Aski Nation 30 years ago, when Nan signed this agreement with Ontario and Canada to create NAPS. And NAPS, it was designed to, or mandated to deliver culturally responsible policing to our communities, with the idea being that they would have guaranteed the same safety measures that everyone has in the province. But we knew that from day one that there were severe gaps within our police service, because it was based on a program, the First Nations policing program, and it was never deemed an essential service. And so as such, they were funded less, that they were not backed by the safety or the rule of law, that there were a lack of standards in our communities, including lockups, including the fact that a lot of times our NAPS officers have to work alone. And so it's been a very difficult 30 years for NAPS, but somehow they've been able to make it work. And I just want to acknowledge our NAPS officers, both that are serving in our communities right now and those that have served in the past. And also just acknowledge, you know, as part of this journey, that it's been painful at times. And people had to die in our communities to get to where we are today. And I just want to acknowledge the two young men that passed away, that died in a makeshift jail facility in Saskatchewan, Trevor Goodwin and Ricardo Wesley, as well as 15-year-old Lena Anderson in Casablanca that passed away in the back of one of our vehicles because our NAPS detachment had no heat in February. I also want to acknowledge Romy Wesley from Catholic. And all the inquests that have taken place as a result of these tragic deaths have recommended to all the parties that NAPS needs to be legislated, that it needs to be deemed an essential service. And that's where we are today. And it's a great day for Nishnawbe Aski Nation. It's a great day for our police service. It's a great day for our people. And it's a great day for our police officers. And there are so many people to thank. And I wrote down some of the names because we began this work not just last month or last year. We've started this work over 10 years ago. And I just want to acknowledge some of the ministers that have been involved in this work. Minister Yasser Naqvi, Madeleine Mayer, David Orzetti. And when the Ford government took over, they agreed to work with us to continue on with this important work. And so I want to acknowledge former Solicitor General, a friend of mine, Sylvia Jones, as well as the current Solicitor General, Michael Kerzner. And also just acknowledge Minister Greg Rickford as well. I also just want to acknowledge our past NAPS Chiefs of Police, our Board of Directors, for their commitment to making NAPS better and getting to us where we are today. I also just want to acknowledge the incredible people that I work with in my office, both today and in the past. One of them is my dear friend Toby Meyer, and I spoke with her yesterday. I thank her for the work that she did when we started this work some years ago. And I think just also to acknowledge that the fact that we will be signing the regulations today doesn't mean that NAPS is all of a sudden perfect. There's still a lot of work to be done. And that's a commitment that we share with Ontario, and we call on Canada as well to remain at the table, to ensure that the vision that Bentley, former Grand Chief Bentley Cheechoo and our other leaders had when they created this organization is fulfilled. And that's to ensure that every family in the Nishnawbe Aski Nation lives in a safe home, in a safe community. And those that will be doing this important work, our NAPS officers, are properly supported. That they will have a partner, that they will have a vehicle that works, that they will work in a police facility, in a detachment that meets standards like any other police service in the country. And so that's the work that we will do moving forward. And I'm just so grateful to a lot of people. I can't name them all. I apologize to those that I may have missed. And one of our supporters in all this work has been our MPP Sol Mamakwa, who's here with us. And I just want to give him a couple of minutes as well to make some acknowledgements and some comments. And say thank you to all of you for being here.
Miigwech, miigwech kagi yamchigen, miigwech kagi madegeg. Thank you for the prayers. Thank you for the drum to start this announcement in a good way. We know that last April 2024, Ontario's new policing legislation, the Community Safety and Policing Act 2019 came into force. And it's important that we acknowledge the work that has been done by the previous ministers, previous governments, previous leadership at the Nishnawbe Aski Police Service, and also the leadership at Nishnawbe Aski Nation. I'm not going to say much, but I just wish that, I just wanted to say congratulations, to the NAPS Nishnawbe Aski Police Board, and also the chair, to police, chief of police, and also the elder. And again, Michael Kerzner, thank you for that work. I know we've done quite a bit of work in some of the issues that we face, and also the elders that are here, and the former leadership, and the non-executive that is here, Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler, and the Deputy Grand Chief Anna Betty Achneepineskum, and Mike Metatawabin, and the board that is in the back. Congratulations, there's a lot of work to be done, so it's for the safety and the goodness of the people that live in the Nishnawbe Aski Nation, which is part of Kiiwetinoong as well. Congratulations, miigwech.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anna Betty Achneepineskum, and I'm very honored to serve as a Deputy Grand Chief of Nishnawbe Aski Nation. First of all, I want to acknowledge God for the day that we have and the life that is given to us. I also want to acknowledge the prayer, Bob, for the prayer and the song that was shared with us this morning. I'm very honored to stand before you today. It has been a long journey for the people of Nishnawbe Aski Nation, Nishnawbe Aski Police, and the board, and the non-executive. We have been very committed to ensuring that this day came to be, and we thank our provincial partners for working with us to ensuring that this day came to be. I want to acknowledge our police officers, those that have been serving since Nishnawbe Aski Police Services has been in place. I've had the honor and privilege of meeting many of them, many women and men that have served, and also our civilian staff as well. Many of them have worked in conditions that for most of us, we would have walked away from the job. If you're expected to keep a community safe and you don't have the resources, you're having to go on foot to go and, respond. And also, many times these officers would be working by themselves. And there were times they would work for, 48 hours or more by themselves. to serve because of that leadership and also the support that they got from not only our non-executive, but our First Nations chiefs as well in our communities. Despite these conditions, these challenges, we have to work and ensure that mental health and that we're taking care of our officers and our civilian staff. We need to ensure that we have the resources. And now with this legislation, we will be able to have those supports and resources in place. That is very important for us to do that. I also want to acknowledge the people, the citizens that live in our communities who have supported the officers. I've heard stories where many of our civilians, our people, our citizens that were living in the communities would come and help our officers when they needed to. I also want to acknowledge their contribution. So this is why I'm very pleased that the CSPA will recognize our rights and our own model of community safety. Within the 34 communities that our Nishnawbe Aski Police Services have, we are diverse. We will have those options to be able to have that recognition of that diversity. The opt-in does not mean that we're going to become an OPP or modeled like the OPP or another municipal police. It has been stated from the very beginning with the vision of former leaders such as former Grand Chief Bentley Cheechoo that we must have the recognition of our unique culture, and that will be part of the opt-in process, and that we will have the resources to do that. I'm also grateful that there are portions of legislation will remind us of our obligations. The NAPS board must consult with our communities and its within its policies. The NAPS board must also consult with these communities on the strategies, plans, and we will now have those resources to be able to have more engagements with our communities. In our work, in my work on justice and policing over the years, I've always been quite impressed by what Nishnawbe Aski Police can accomplish, even without the tools that it should have had. After today, these tools will become available to Chief Armstrong and Chair McKay and all the men and women of Nishnawbe Aski Police. And I truly believe that a year from now, the new NAPS will set up new standards for all of our First Nations. I'm very grateful and honored, again, to be here. And I look forward to continuing the work with our NAPS board, our Chief of Police, our leadership, and all the citizens of Nishnawbe Aski, and also our provincial partners. Miigwech for being here, Wachie, And I'm now call upon our former Grand Chief, Ben Cheechoo, to come and say a few words. Oh. So before former Grand Chief Ben Cheechoo, it will be Mike McKay that will make a few comments. Mingwich. I was reading.
We're going to welcome Deputy Grand Chief Mike Metatawabin.
Biggest Deputy Grand Chief. Biggest Watik Sheha Minister. Kino Mse. Kino Kiiwetinoong Kabetse Dohtamek, Kabetsen Dohtoya, Kabetsa Kanopamia, Kabetsa Kanopahek. Watik Mse, Dochemitinan. Nistegene is Nestania. Nestan Nascomun. Ashi. Eutestepanik. Eutinagoya, Epistaganagoya, Nestaginano, Chuichigabustoho, Utagaitachic, Mr. Enahan, Ontario, Nestaginano, Tabasco Chichinagosir. Egonome, Eminutinaman, Nesta, Nascomun Namuste. Nascomog, Mr. Gagibet Mistamaguya, you can say Hamanok, Ukamahana, Gagibet Gestroba, Kiguana, Utana Hiteke. No magiski betis pano, shagor maga, ashi kitistano, ashi pistoganano, onashon, je mustata nestaginano. I acknowledge the communities and the leadership for helping us reach this milestone. Today we are finally accepted and included in the legislation to protect all citizens of Ontario. This marks the official beginning of our new relationship. What a journey it has been. I think about the meetings, I think about the journey that we embarked when we started this process. It has been a very rewarding experience and a very learning experience. And it is something that all of us in Ontario need to understand and realize. There is something that we need to know, and that is we are all citizens of Ontario. We are now partners committed to providing protection. I want to acknowledge the Mushkegowuk Tribal Council chiefs for keeping me on as their representative over the last 20 years. I also want to thank the Board of Directors of Nishnawbe Aski Nation Police Services for their ongoing support in my role as the board chair throughout the negotiation process. I also want to acknowledge Frank McKay, current board chair, for his support and his commitment as well in participating in the negotiations. I also want to say a special thank you to my wife, Eva, and to our grandchildren. With this process and the commitment involved, we had to sacrifice many family trips just to keep the conversation going. So I just wanted to acknowledge and say thank you to my wife for her ongoing support. Thank you to Ontario. Thank you to Ontario. Thank you to Premier Doug Ford and ministers for opening your legislature and allowing our nation to become part of the Community Safety and Policing Act. We welcome the opportunity to be included under the current Policing Act for Ontario. We appreciate the goodwill and the open-mindedness of all parties involved during the negotiations. I want to mention former Deputy Minister Nagvi for his willingness to visit our remote locations. This helped to address the realities Nishnawbe Aski Police Services had to operate under. You need to see firsthand before you can truly appreciate the issues and challenges our police services faced before this legislation. I want to acknowledge the ministerial staff, the people involved in the negotiations from both sides, our side and from the province. We had many meetings, and they were both challenging, but at the same time, with open minds, open hearts, we got the job done. With that, I want to acknowledge the staff from the ministry. Together, we can provide protection that is accorded to every citizen in Ontario. The journey has been long and arduous. We lost many men and women who decided they could no longer work under the conditions Nishnawbe Aski Police Service had to operate with. We lost two of our constables to suicide due to the extreme working conditions. And with that, I just want to acknowledge the families who suffered that loss. When NAPS began operations in 1994, we had no mental health support. The remote locations of our communities have not been easy for our men and women who served us, who served with our police service. The never-ending renewal of funding agreements with Ontario and Canada did not make things easy either. Canada always seemed to be the reluctant participant during the negotiations. But Ontario was always noticeably open and willing to accommodate throughout the process. It was always the intent of NAN and Nishnawbe Aski Police Service to pursue a legislative process. It was just a question of when and how. The opportunity presented itself when the Nishnawbe Aski Nation communities agreed to support Nishnawbe Aski Nation and Nishnawbe Aski Police Services to begin the legislative negotiation process. I also want to extend my sincere gratitude to the legal firm of Julian Faulkner. Their expertise helped navigate the complexities involved in updating the outdated Police Services Act. Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler also played a key role in keeping the negotiations on track. His leadership helped keep all parties focused on the key issues. We needed that leadership throughout the process. It was to help facilitate the discussions. It was to help navigate, to bring the parties together. There were times when parties did not have the full commitment. So with his help, it kept the momentum going. Today, this legislation has been long overdue. We celebrate together. Who could have imagined what the journey would have been like? If only we knew then. As mentioned earlier, we are finally here. As mentioned earlier, it was always the intent of NAN to pursue a legal option. We are finally here today. Nishnawbe Aski Nation first signed the policing agreement in 1994. It only took 30 years to get to where we are today, to get to where we need to be today. So with that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to all parties. Thank you to the province. There are so many people to thank. I want to thank my nephew, Jason. He's one of the constables. He was my sounding board. He helped to guide me in these conversations. So, like I said, there's so many people to thank. I want to thank my community of Fort Albany for their support as well, and providing that support that is always needed and it's always greatly appreciated. So with that, I want to introduce the man, the legend, the one who started it all and was bold enough to move forward despite some reluctance on our side. So with that, I would like to ask Bentley Cheechoo to say a few words. Sumigat.
Rich, thank you very much for this afternoon. I'm going to be very, very brief. I'm going to have a lot to say. I just had to thank back in 94 or 93 or whatever the year it was, before the signing of the agreement, one of the deputies, I forget which word it was, anyway, came over and said, what is it that you see would be our future as far as the police force is concerned? I said, well, you know, what we are about to sign is not something that we're looking forward to. And I mean, it wasn't any use to hide the fact that we were not satisfied with the agreement. But I knew our people at the time said that they would continue the work that is required to get to the stage today where we are. And all that work that's been done, a lot of people have been thanked already. I don't even remember the names anymore. But I know the role of the police force, the advocating work that has to be done by the board, and I mean, I heard all of it. And it's the same with the Grand Chief and the deputies, their work that is required. And I know even today, even though that's a very important time as far as the Nishnawbe Aski people is concerned. But today is when the work begins. We're going on a new journey now. Now we have to put together the agreement, put the work behind the agreement to make it into a truly police force that we want. So with that, I thank first of all the frontline workers, acknowledge them, the officers. You know, I can imagine that to be a police officer that is not sometimes the most enjoyable work to have. But it is satisfying in this way that today the officers will know that at least they got some people behind them to help them. So I'd like to thank everybody for listening to me, and I all wish you well in the journey that you're going to embark on. Thank you very much.
Please welcome NAPS Board Chair Frank McKay.
Oh, good afternoon. I'm glad to see you here all, and I'm glad to be here today on this very important historical event for our First Nations in the Nishnawbe Aski Nation. Before I start acknowledging people, I just wanted to say, that how momentous occasion this is in relation to what we have achieved over the last 30 years that we have existed as a NAPS Police Service for our communities. 30 years ago, our chiefs made a bold move, bold decision, that they wanted to have their own police force. They wanted to have their own, create their own police force that they can, have more culturally appropriate and more community-based action in relation to how they want to be policed. And most of all, they wanted to have their laws and tradition recognized in the area. So I wanted to say thank you to the province and the federal government, and also to the police officers that have worked for us in our territory. So let's give them a big hand. So good afternoon. My name is Frank McKay. I'm the acting chair of the Nishnawbe Aski Police Services Board. I've been with the board off and on since 2004. I would like to acknowledge the Creator for the gift of life and also for all His creations. And also want to acknowledge the elder that said the prayer for us, Bob Baxter, and also the drum and the singers that sing the song for us. And also want to acknowledge the land that we're having this ceremony on, the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit, the Nishnawbe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat. And also I like to begin by acknowledging everyone here today, including Grand Chief Fiddler, former Grand Chief Bentley Cheechoo, our Deputy Grand Chiefs, our Police Chief Armstrong, and the Ontario ministers that are here today. I want to acknowledge them. I remember when I got started in 1994, all of our chiefs were demanding that we have the ability to police ourselves and to have our own police service. When NAPS was created, this was an interim step to get recognition of our people, our laws, and also our traditions and practices. We wanted the same security and safety protection as any other person in this country. When there's a threat to Canada's national security, they institute measures to take on the threat. And that's exactly what we were doing when we created NAPS. Right now, we have an opiate crisis in our territory that's killing our people. And today is an important step in tackling that threat. NAPS started in 1994. That's taken 30 years to get to this point. We will now have the resources we need to take on this crisis. NAPS is not like any other police service. We have unique challenges like our remoteness and isolation, which other police don't face. Like many of you, I'm thinking about Lena Anderson, Ricardo Wesley, Jamie Goodwin, Romeo Wesley, and others like them. Our community members have suffered from the lack of safety backed by the rule of law. My name is on the 2013 public safety notice that NAN issued, which went out after Lena Anderson died. warning our communities were unsafe. And I remember trying to convince Ontario and Canada that we needed to make urgent changes. During my time on the NAPS board, I have watched the service overcome major challenges. I was always impressed by Chief Armstrong and other chief of police, chiefs of police that we had working for us, and with all the officers and staff, what we can accomplish. I've always been part of the working group preparing NAN and NAPS for this day. We work hard to ensure we're ready and that the new NAPS gets to work and the work begins today. Today, we celebrate, the recognition of a NAPS police force as an essential service. And this is what we had been advocating for since we got established. It's also a promise. This new legislation, the Community Safety and Police Act, creates an opportunity for NAPS to ensure those terrible tragedies never happen again. It's also a promise to future generations that we will live with the same safety guarantees as all Canadians. And I want to thank everybody that's here today. I want to also acknowledge, the work that was done by all the people that made this happen. And so with that, Jimmy Rich. Now I want to introduce our Chief of Police, Terry Armstrong, to make his comments.
Bonjour, Wache. I'd like to just start by acknowledging the Metatawabin drum, the singers, Eagle staffs, our elder, Bob Baxter, who I started policing with. He'd already been on a couple of years back in about 40 years ago. So it's always nice to see him. He always had my back when we were working back then. I'd like to also acknowledge all the guests here and all the leadership for being here today. My name is Terry Armstrong. I'm the Chief of Police in Nishnawbe Aski Nation. I joined NAPS in 2013 after a fairly lengthy career that moved me through a number of different First Nations communities and First Nations police forces, along with the OPP. Altogether, I've policed or been responsible to police 64 First Nations communities in this province, and I'm very proud to have that honor to have done that. When I started my career, I started in the remote fly-in policing community of Kiiwetinoong in 1984. So yes, that's 40 years ago. It was a remote fly-in community, and we were very much underfunded, understaffed, just as you hear today from the startup of Nishnawbe Aski Police Service. The landscape was very, very different. From there, I went to the Northwest Patrol Unit. It was with OPP that we flew into the same communities that I'm policing today. We had a Northwest and a Northeast Patrol Unit, and we flew in to the communities on rotations. Many of the communities had no airports. We flew in on skis and pontoons, and it was just a very, very different environment. One of the things that stuck out at those times was the fact that we very much worked alone all the time as police officers without the proper equipment. I'm here to tell you today we still have officers working alone, but we hope that this will change with the signing of this agreement. I actually remember the day that Nishnawbe Aski Police Service, or Nishnawbe Aski Nation, spoke of a police service. I was working with the OPP Northwest Patrol Unit, and the staff sergeant who became the first chief of Nishnawbe Aski Police Service, it was 1992, came in and said, Nishnawbe Aski Nation is going to have their own police service. Pick a spot. You're all transferring. It took a couple of years, as we heard, to go into 1994 before things actually happened, but I did pick a spot. The patrol hung around for a little bit longer, but I did move on to another location. As I mentioned, a lot of the places didn't have that we policed back in the day. We didn't have airports. They didn't have police detachments. We worked alone. We used a lot of different means to work and make things happen. But the biggest part of all that was the communities we served. The communities backed us. They helped us. And quite often, the same people I was arresting were my backup when I ran into real trouble because of the people. And that's what this is about. It's about the people, and it's about safety and the lack of safety that they've endured for a number of years. I also did a stint with the Lac Seul Police Service as their chief and served as the deputy chief of the Treaty 3 Police Service. So I've had the fortune and the honor to have policed in a lot of different locations, as I mentioned. And a big honor to have been asked to come and be the chief at NAPS in 2013. It was months after the Lena Anderson death, and there was a public safety notice out. And the realities of First Nation policing being forced to do more with less were there. Officers were working double shifts, officers performing the roles of 3 people at one time. And we lived this as frontline officers, and I see it today still as the chief of police. I recently came out of retirement to rejoin NAPS, and I've never lost the drive to keep supporting the communities of Nishnawbe Aski Nation. In the end, the decision to return to Nishnawbe Aski Police was easy. I consulted with my wife, Achneepineskum, who's a proud Nishnawbe from Bearskin Lake First Nation, and one of the most resilient people I've ever met in my life. I listened to her, and here I am. I'm back to some of the best years of my life. I'm back to relive some of them, I think. The reality is that working with the communities, like I say, it's Nishnawbe Aski Nation. The people are the best people to work for, and like I say, they're very, very much there for us in the hard times. And although, yes, we get, very often we get told, we're not doing things right, they're always there giving us that constructive criticism. But we know that they do appreciate their police service, day in and day out. So I'd like to take the time to thank those proud men and women that serve Nishnawbe Aski Police Service for all their hard work and commitment, both civilian and uniform. And I want to thank the Nishnawbe Aski leadership for being there. I want to thank the Nishnawbe Aski board for being as stable and as hardworking as they are. Probably the best police services board I've seen. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that hopefully the lack of equality and disparity, the lack of funding, the many sleepless nights will come to a bit of an end with the signing of with this act, because they say the money's there to help us move forward and provide safety to the very deserving members of the Nishnawbe Aski Nation. Miigwech.
I'd like to welcome Solicitor General Kerzner to come up and do the signing of the regulation.
Yeah.
We've got a few places to sign off.
All right, is it my turn?
Yeah, sure, please.
Go a little more here. I'll just sign it. Bentley will witness here. Bentley, you'll witness over here and sign here. Here at the bottom of my signature. Here you go. Wow. Yep. It's your turn. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
We did it, Ben. And Frank. Frank, you're the last one. Just. Frank?
So,
Okay. Yeah.
I have to
Yeah.
co-sign everybody?
Yeah, right there. Yeah. And then there's an actual. And then your signatures. No, yeah, your name's on there. Right.
This one too? Yeah, yeah.
Frank, for the photo, can you hold that better?
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna get Mike, can you grab a photo?
We're making sure that he's actually signing it. You guys can witness too. Yeah. You can just sign,
Anywhere?
yeah, at the bottom, yeah. Yeah, and the last one's Mike. Well, there's,
Okay.
no, this, no,
No?
this one, yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Mike, you're the last one to. Yeah, where we sign right here, here, and.
Yeah, the
here.
elder signs too,
Yeah.
if you want.
Oh yeah, we should get Bob. Bob Kagan. We want as many witnesses as we can, so one of us passes. Hopefully not for a while.
Yeah, I got your phone, man. See that?
Right here.
And then Bob is the last one. Wait, Bob. Cleaning your suit there, Mike. Okay, and Bob. Nope. This is our NAN team. So is there a Q&A after this? Okay. Terry, do you want to witness? That's it? Do you want to witness? You want to witness? Do you want to witness? Okay, yeah, sign, yeah.
Chief Armstrong to witness. What do you want me to say?
now start the media Q&A. Media, if you'd like to ask a question, please come and line up at the mic. You can ask one question and one follow-up. Please state your name and outlet.
Hey, Isaac from Global News. Multiple speakers have talked about the new tools that this framework provides. Could you give some practical examples of what couldn't be done before the framework that can now be done as a result of the changes that are coming in?
Well, firstly, I think it's an amazing historic day. I'm honored to be here. We've traveled, as our speakers have said, a long road. We've had a First Nations, Inuit, and policing program, which was a federal government tripartite agreement in place for over 30 years. Ontario recognized that more resources were required to ensure that First Nations Police Services had additional resources available to them. I think what this opt-in does today is it sends a message that Ontario will do what it has to do when others won't and when others can't. And I'm very, very proud that we're here today. Specifically to your question, we're going to be at the Ontario Police College this Friday. We're going to welcome 15 new NAPS police recruits to be part of the police service. We're very, very proud of that, and we're going to continue to make sure that when our IPCO chiefs call, and we have the executive director of IPCO here, Kailu, today, Chief Kailu, those spaces will be available to make sure that the cadets go to our First Nations communities to keep them safe.
I would just also add that the regulations that will support this or this legislation will include the creation of standards, and that's something that's been just missing over the last 30 years, that our police service will need to adhere to certain standards like any other police service not just in the province but across the country. And it will mean that our detachments, for example, will have to meet building code. And that we should not, just to mitigate those risks that led to the fire in Saskatchewan in 2006 and 2007. So that is huge for us. That's significant that our Nishnawbe Aski Police Service will operate within this framework that will include standards.
I just want to add too that there were some things that were prohibited from us providing services, and that was specialized units for our police force. We couldn't do our own investigation if there was a homicide. We couldn't do. We couldn't have a K9 units. We couldn't have, and still, we had to depend on the OPP to be able to provide those specialized services that we required at that time. So, but this policy also prohibited us from acquiring money to negotiate for our own police services, like legal advice and negotiators. That was prohibited for us to undertake.
So then if there are those additional things, be it the building code or perhaps training homicide officers, presumably there are new long-term costs as well as the money associated in the short term. Is the province taking on those costs? And forgive the ignorance, does the Police Services Board levy a property tax equivalent to pay for its fees? Like, how does that long-term cost work, both for the province and for the policing authority?
Well, firstly, we're delighted that after 30 years, we're here today. We've made an announcement of our commitment today. I made it as part of my remarks. There's enormous resources that the province will contribute to make sure that adequate and effective policing is there. We're going to continue to engage with the federal government on one point that so far they have not done, and I advocated for it when I went to Yellowknife recently at our federal, provincial, and territorial meeting. You must introduce legislation to make First Nations police services essential. This is something that I've advocated now for 3 years. I said it to Minister LeBlanc and Minister Varani, do it now, do the right thing, do it now, because we had to act as part of the CSPA that brought us here to the opt-in, because the federal government would not easily renegotiate the funding arrangement under the FNIPP that they should have done. And that's why we've come forward today.
I would just also add that what today means is a sustainable police service for NAPS, for NAN. And it's not to let Canada off the hook by any means, that they need to remain at the table, as I said earlier, that they need to ensure that their contributions continue to make NAPS sustainable moving forward.
Respectfully, Solicitor General, though, is there a long-term cost associated with it? I understand what's being announced today, but it sounds like there will be costs associated with these changes.
Yeah, for sure.
And is the province taking them on, or will that be the police authority?
And that was part of our work. I mean, we've been at this now for 8 years plus. And part of the exercise was to actually figure out what is the true cost of delivering an effective, safe policing service in an territory, because we all recognize that the old funding model just didn't even come close to meeting the needs of the resources that our police service needed to fulfill its mandate. So, we all recognize that the resources that will be required, to ensure that or to make NAPS an essential service will mean higher, higher resources, and that the budget needs to increase. And it's not just Ontario, but Canada will need to be at that table as well to ensure that all these needs are met.
Sean Jefford, CBC Toronto. Gentlemen, I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about the plan to staff up. This plan calls for an increase to the officer complement to 500 officers. What are the challenges right now in getting to that figure, and how long is it going to take?
I'll let Chief Armstrong and the chair talk about the timing for that, but what I can tell you is that by our government, led by Premier Ford, who came forward with concrete changes at the Ontario Police College that has allowed NAPS in the current class, as an example, and we'll be there, Chief, you and I will be there in just in a couple days to see the 15 latest cadets come forward. What it means is that the chief can go on a recruitment program with the surety that there will be spots at the Ontario Police College. This was fundamental, and as I said in my remarks, we've waived all the basic constable training fees, the BCTs. This is $17,000 that's been waived for everybody, not just from First Nations police services, but for everybody. The message across Ontario is this government has prioritized our public safety, and there is no modern day precedent for the actions that we have taken and how serious we've taken the actions. Chief?
Yes, we're actively recruiting right now. We've already started to beef up our numbers. Right now we're hiring, we intend to hire 20 per class. There's 4 classes a year, so that's 80 a year. So we hope to be staffed up. We lose 20 a year because of the remoteness and the challenges of the policing. It's tough policing, so it's not for everybody. So our hope is within 6 years we'll be staffed up.
Thank you, gentlemen. Solicitor General, a question on another topic today. There's a community group in Toronto that runs a safe consumption site. They have launched a legal challenge against the province's legislation. They say it's an overreach in charter rights and municipal decision-making. I'm wondering what your response is generally.
Well, I can't speak to any legal action that's taking place, but I think the Premier and my colleagues have been very clear. Parks are for the safety of our families and are for loved ones. We want to make sure that our families are safe wherever they are, that our families are safe to send their kids off to school in the morning, that we're safe to go to work, that we're safe to come home at the end of the day and play in that same park, and we're able to come home and go to our houses of worship. So I think Premier Ford's been absolutely clear on this. We want to make sure that we have the systems in place to allow people to get help. Minister Jones has been clear. Minister Tabolo has been clear. My other colleagues have been clear. But with regards to our parks and use of illegal substances in our parks, that's not right. Our parks are for our kids and for our families.
Hi, John Woodward from CTV News. This is also a question for the Solicitor General. It's about restitution. You may have seen published figures that there are large numbers and large dollar values of restitution ordered by judges to victims of crime. The trouble is they don't seem to be actually paid, and various different provinces have different approaches. In this province, it doesn't seem like the victims get much assistance. So I wanted to ask you, is that something that's on your mind? Would you consider using your ministry to help victims of crime get some of the money they're owed?
Well, I can't speak directly to any court challenges that are there, but what I can tell you is our government is funding programs for victim services across the province. We funded many programs. You know, we are doing everything that we can to work with our stakeholders and with our partners across the ministries to make sure that, you know, we are there to support victims of crime, that we're there to support the survivors as well. So this is an all-of-government approach. We take it seriously. But again, it goes back to the message of public safety. And I stood up in the legislature yesterday, and I said it very clearly. There's no modern-day precedent of a government that has taken public safety as seriously as we have taken it under the leadership of our Premier, Doug Ford.
If you're taking it that seriously, doesn't it bother you that if someone's a victim of crime from a fraud and a judge orders restitution payment to them, the fraudster just decides to scam the courts again and refuse to pay?
Well, again, this is something that I'll be happy to discuss with my colleague, the AG. But I want to raise another point, and that is we have been calling on the federal government to enact much tougher bail laws. We don't want to have violent and repeat offenders on our streets. We have my colleague and good friend, the Associate Minister, responsible for auto theft and bail reform. We've conveyed a very serious message. We don't want people out the next day doing another heinous crime. This is totally unacceptable. And it's not too late for the federal government to hear what people have said across the country. Enact meaningful bail reform so we don't have these violent and repeat offenders on our streets. It's completely unacceptable.
Thank you, everyone. That'll be the end of the Q&A. We'll now go into the final prayer.
In our culture, one of the greatest gifts we have is the eagle feather. And it is said that when we say our prayers holding an eagle feather, the eagle takes it up to the Creator, that message, that prayer that we give. And I was very honored to see the minister take this feather in his hand as he signed this agreement. Because we all have to walk our spiritual path as we journey. And it was very, like I'll say it again, I was very honored to see the minister take this feather as he signed that agreement. And I hope that the Creator is up there watching and listening to us as we move forward. I'll say my prayer in Ojibwe. Agishaman ito, bigay kitini humino wega. Wega ki tasinjigateg. Wea kenunjima menos seang wegi Nishnawbe yan. Wegi ni masatamang we nimikanan. Shani mekena wea gumagaya wach, magakipisha wach, kipe nontam wach, kipe kageto wach. Shani mata, shani meshya. Shani mekumagenun chimachang, shani mishnamat, genun chimachang. Weakchin itakushanang, geni isha. Yeah, miigwech kitanin gishaman to. Miigwech.